Coping with stress. First off, what even is stress? Stress is the body's reaction to harmful situations, often known as fight or flight or the stress response. It's what helps you to keep your body from preventing injury, is another way of phrasing it. To give an idea of exactly how stressed high school students are today, psychologist Robert Lay points out the average high school student today has the same level of anxiety as the average psychiatric painter did in the early 1950s. Also, according to the 2002 World Mental Health Survey, people in developing world countries such as Nigeria are up to 5 times less likely to show clinically significant anxiety levels than Americans. There are tons of ways to identify if someone is stressed, but it's different for everyone. And emotional symptoms of stress can be things as feeling frustrated, feel like you're losing control, having difficulty relaxing, or feeling worthless and depressed. And things such as avoiding others are very common as well. Physical symptoms of stress include, but are not restricted to, the following: low energy, headaches, upset stomach, insomnia, loss of sexual desire, sweaty hands or feet, grinding of the teeth, dry mouth, constipation, diarrhea, and pretty much any other thing you could think of. So, now how to actually cope with stress. Obviously, not all stress can be avoided, and there's multiple ways to reduce stress, but believe it or not, it's actually important for everyone to have a little bit of stress in their lives because it drives us to do things that we don't want to do and other things like that. From all the different ways of coping with stress I looked at, keeping a journal is one of the most important things that you can do. It's important to write down what it is that's causing stress, and doing that can help you identify exactly what is causing all of this stress. And then after that, you can move on to what you need to do in order to cope with that. After you've identified what it is that's causing your stress, take control of what you can. Say the evening news is just causing you a ton of stress and it's really just not productive for you. Just simply turn it off. Something like that, it can easily be avoided, and it's the first step to stopping stress. Another thing that's easy to avoid is people who annoy you. Being around people such as a mean boss or a mean parent or sibling is just another thing that can add to your stress, especially if you wrote it down on your list. Being around people you like is also a good way to cope with stress. It makes you happy. It's very important to stay close to people you enjoy spending time with. Because you're stressed, you might think, oh, I don't have time for hanging out with my friends or going to the movies with them or seeing my family or talking to them on the phone, but that's a very important thing that you must keep doing in order to cope with your stress. Probably the most commonly known form of coping with stress is relaxing. Things like going on a walk in the park or taking a nap, just reading a book, sitting on the beach, or just invoking yourself in nature can all be great stress relievers. If stress is really causing you problems, stuff like getting a massage or lighting scented candles can really help with stress. Or it might be a little expensive, but it's worth it. Or you can exchange with a friend or do anything that you need to do. These are just ideas of things you can try. Another important way of coping with stress is to make sure that you're not afraid to speak what's on your mind and be willing to compromise and manage your time correctly and try to always look at the upside. And if you're constantly looking down on things, your stress will just keep getting worse and worse. There's also a lot of unhealthy things you can do to cope with stress that actually aren't good ways to cope with it, such as sleeping too much. Believe it or not, you can sleep too much. A lot of people say, oh, I'm tired from all this stress, but there's a certain point where sleep can only do so much. Something that a lot of people do to think it's just, oh, whatever, is either way overeating or way undereating. Neither of them are healthy habits, and both of them can actually lead to more stress, and it in no way can cope with stress, even though you might think it is. So always keep that in mind. Something that I think most people know is not good for you is smoking, drinking, doing drugs, and other things of that nature. And all they do is distract you, but they do cause more stress, and it does not lead to reducing your stress in any way. Also, another thing to keep in mind is when I say let go of your emotions and don't be afraid to share them with people, that doesn't mean you lash out at people for your anger and stress and blame it on someone like you see here. I don't even know what they're yelling about, but it doesn't look fun. Another important thing to keep in mind is that some things you're going to have to do regardless. Like getting food, getting dinner, or taking out the trash, or putting gas in your car. Procrastination is a terrible way to cope with stress, and it's never should be used, even though we do a lot. All in all, when it comes to stress, make sure that you avoid it as best as you can, or alter it, or if neither of those are possibilities, and it's something as simple as taking out the trash, just adapt to it, or simply accept it if it's really necessary to. Unfortunately, in today's society, everyone has a lot more stress than they should. The statistic I shared earlier is a fantastic example, but these are just some ideas on how to cope with stress. But anything that you can think of or anything that works for you is probably better than anything I have to share. I can't stress enough how everyone has their own forms of stress and their own ways of dealing with it, but it's important to always try to keep the amount of stress you have to a minimum. Just go out, enjoy yourself, and remember that everything always gets better, and there's never too much stress. Thank you again.